me now is Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama. He's a senior advisor to Donald Trump. Senator, good morning. Thanks for joining us. You just heard Khizr Khan there in our interview here on State of the Union. A few moments ago, he said that Donald Trump has a black soul. What's your response to that?
I reject that, and I'm disappointed that he would say that. Donald Trump complimented him. He praised his son who gave his life for this country. Mr. Khan's son served in the military. He did his duty, and he gave his life for America, and that deserves to be celebrated, absolutely. But I don't think anybody that says that we ought to slow down and be more careful about bringing in immigrants from countries that have terrorist tendencies and can't be vetted properly. I don't believe that that's a person that lacks a soul. In fact, millions of Americans, a majority of Americans favor that kind of policy with regard to immigration from countries that have histories of terrorism.
But what do you say, Senator Sessions, to your fellow Republicans like Ohio Governor John Kasich? They're expressing disappointment in Donald Trump for his treatment of the Khan family. Donald Trump questioned whether the mother of this soldier did not speak because of her Muslim faith. Obviously, that is not the case. Could Donald Trump have handled this better, do you think, in your view?
Well, it's important that we communicate these issues correctly. Every American, no matter what their religion, is entitled to be protected in the free expression of that religion in America, but you don't have a religious right to demand entry into the United States. The Constitution does not give that right. In fact, the law of the United States is crystal clear that the president should not admit people
right, but Senator, I think part of the
detrimental to the country.
But Senator, I think part of the issue here is how Donald Trump responded to the wife of Khizr Khan, suggesting that she was silent there during the convention because of her faith.
I read the transcript of what he said on the Stephanopoulos interview. Trump, takes these interviews all the time, unlike Hillary Clinton, who hides from the press. And his interview was not unkind. It was respectful. It did express condolences to the family for their loss, Jim.
And let me ask you about some comments that Donald Trump made last week in inviting the Russians to hack into Hillary Clinton's emails, a comment that he later said he was being sarcastic about. He did later say that he did not have any business dealings with the Russians. Let me put this up on screen. It says in this tweet, "For the record, I have zero investments in Russia." He was saying that in reaction to Democrats who were suggesting that perhaps he's taking this soft approach on Russia because he has business dealings there. But according to the Washington Post, Senator, there is strong evidence that Trump has received significant funding through his businesses from those Russian investors. What can you tell us about these investments? What are you aware of? Is he coming clean on this?
Well, what I want to tell you is that Hillary Clinton left her email system totally vulnerable to a Russian penetration. It's probably clear that they have what was on that system. I have people come up to me all the time and say, why don't you, if you want to find out where those 30,000 emails are, why don't you ask the Russians? They're the ones that have them. So she's made a huge error in that. Secondly, this whole problem with Russia is really disastrous for America, for Russia, and for the world. Donald Trump is right. We need to figure out a way to end this cycle of hostility that's putting this country at risk, costing us billions of dollars in defense and creating hostility.
But is he right about saying that he has no investments in Russia? Is he right when he says he has no investments?
I don't know anything about, look, that's not the big issue for America today, whether that's not the big issue. The big issue is, should we be able to create a new and positive relationship with Russia? I think it makes no sense that we're at the hostility level.
Let me ask you, Senator,
Hillary Clinton tried this reset, and it failed, and we need to see what we can do in the future.
In your view, is Vladimir Putin a good leader or a bad leader? Is he a good man or a bad man, in your view?
What we need, we have a lot of bad leaders around the world that operate in ways we would never tolerate in the United States. But the question is, can we have a more peaceful, effective relationship with Russia, utilizing interests that are similar in a realistic way to make this world a safer place and get off this dangerous hostility with Russia?
Well, this
it's
is a good topic
possible.
for the debates this fall, sir. Let me ask you this, because we're running out of time here. The presidential debates are scheduled to begin on September 26th. Here's a look at the schedule. September 26th, the first presidential debate. October 4th, the vice presidential debate. And then the following weeks, we'll have the second and the third. On Friday, Donald Trump took to Twitter and accused Hillary Clinton of trying to rig these debates so they're up against NFL games. Is he going to participate in these fall debates?
Well, I would expect so, and they'll negotiate intensely, as you know, is always done in these debates. Hillary Clinton wanted the lowest possible followership, so she negotiated with Sanders to have bad dates. He wanted dates with higher rating possibilities. She wanted low rating possibilities. I don't know what's going on in these negotiations, but I suspect it'll be intense as we go forward.